welcome to the 8th edition of the Astute Engineer. I know I say this often, but really excited about this one. So we've got Natalie Parker. Anyone who understands engineering would have seen in the press an award winner. We'll come on to that in a moment. But, let's start from University of Cumbria. You sat there, woke up one morning and said, I know what I want to be. I know what I need to do. And you went on engineering. How did that happen? What inspired you?
So my story is probably a little bit different. I'd gone to sixth form. I was studying maths, science and geography at the time. And my secondary school didn't have a sixth form element, so I had to go to a different school. And during the first year of study, it just wasn't for me. Tuition fees had gone up from £3,000 a year to £9,000. And I sat down with my mum and dad and I had the conversation of what did I want to do? What did I want to go study at university? And I just didn't know. So we started exploring apprenticeships with the local training provider. And yeah, I applied. I actually applied to be a nuclear operator because that's what my dad was,
Okay.
and electrical and instrumentation craft. So off I went to my interview, and it was actually the academic side. I'd looked at my GCSE results and had suggested that I looked at control systems. So I says, what's control systems? Never heard of it before. Have you heard of programming? No, never heard of that. But do you like problem solving? I says, yeah, I love problem solving, logical thinking. Yeah, we think you'll be great. And that's honestly how my journey started.
Yeah, and it's interesting because when I did a bit of research on you, as I said, stalking earlier, um, and it's amazing how I look at the apprenticeship and the apprenticeship pathway that you went on. And I think there's a lot of people, girls and boys, who get to that age, still don't know what they want to do, and certainly don't know the pathways they need to take. And apprenticeships, I think, is an amazing route forward. But actually, part of your inspiration was because of your dad being in that nuclear industry as well.
Yeah.
But that's scary. I mean, a young girl looking at the big manufacturing facility, the energy, but then you look at nuclear as well. How did you how did you approach that?
I was quite apprehensive at first. So the stereotypical back 2009, when they came into school, the training provided, it wasn't open to everybody. So the boys went off to the classroom and they learnt about apprenticeships. And at the time I was going to sixth form, that was my route. I was a girl. And then when my dad suggested looking at apprenticeships, I was kind of like, I don't want to look at that. That's what the boys do.
Yep.
My male cousins had all gone down the apprenticeship route. The females had gone to university, and it took a lot of persuading. Had I not been enjoying sixth form, I potentially would have pushed myself. If I'd really been enjoying going to sixth form, I would have pushed myself down the university route.
Yep.
I'm really pleased that I didn't. And again, where I live, Sellafield is the main provider. So it was there wasn't really that many more options. When I went on the apprenticeship route, it was set that I was going to Sellafield.
So that's quite amazing as well. So we've done a few schemes here at Astute where we've tried to empower some of the girls with that self-confidence. And it's really about overcoming the imposter syndrome. So you must have sat there and felt, I'm actually going down the route that most guys would take and it'd be blocked for girls. Is that how you felt? And is that the kind of the message you're trying to get through now?
I was really scared at the time. So there was myself and another female on my apprentice cohort studying control systems with 8 boys. So we were in the minority, especially in comparison to everybody on
Yeah.
that year group. But it was amazing. I was never made to feel any different during my apprenticeship. We're seeing more girls, but not at the level that we previously had, which is disappointing. So every year we used to see 2 females coming onto the control systems apprenticeship, and over the last few years that's gone down to 1.
Is it really? And we've talked about it for many years about there is a major demographic shift that needs to happen within engineering, within manufacturing, and there's a couple of generational gaps that need to be closed. I know you're involved and you're really keen on introducing STEM and trying to get the youngsters into engineering. Um, how do you make that first step change in someone's thinking then? Because you've experienced a journey, but you must have actually, been quite apprehensive at your time. So how do you instill that confidence it's the right move for the youngsters?
I think there's a lot of step points that need to be had. So, as employers, we can go into schools and we can talk about STEM, and we inadvertently trying to show female role models carrying out engineering, technology-based roles. However, we need the schools, we need curriculum to work alongside the government changes that we can't just come in for one day and they've changed their mindset. We
Hmm.
need the schools to work to continuously show um, the careers that are in STEM for females.
So I mean, I guess you need the schools to invest their time and effort, and it's a long journey. So do you get that commitment? I mean, is that a barrier?
Absolutely. So at Sellafield, we've got a newly formed about 18 months ago an educational outreach team. That team have been doing amazing work. So with all the schools in Cumbria, there's a lot of STEM activities ranging from Key Stage 1, early years, right up until year 11 and sixth form.
Okay.
We offer a wide range of work experience programmes at Sellafield, a lot of talks in assemblies, career events. So it's that continuum work, and we support T levels as well. So there is a lot of work going on between the local schools in Cumbria
Hmm.
and Sellafield itself.
So I guess that leads me quite nicely on to the amazing award that you got recognised with. Um, so let's talk about that. So Young Woman Engineer of the Year. How did that start? I mean, who put you forward?
So it was my previous head of department.
Okay.
It sent through the nomination pack, had asked me to apply for it. I really didn't want to. It's obviously a lengthy process applying, and I had no self-confidence, no belief that I would ever get to any stage, especially when I seen previous
So you didn't
winners.
believe you were good enough?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
I put it together, and then it had to have a sponsor. So one of my colleagues who co-chaired the Women in Technology group, she'd put the sponsor form together for me. And then at the time I was actually off on sick. My husband had had major brain surgery.
Right.
So I was off at home, and I had an email come through saying that I'd reached the final five, and I had to do an interview the week later. So a lot going on at home. I didn't really have time to prepare, and I thought I'm just going to have to be myself and see how it goes. So I'd done the interview to the panels the week after. Was tried to be myself, show my passion for STEM, supporting the future. And yeah, the day after they got in touch to say that I'd reached the final. So I was honestly, the tears that came out when I found out, rang my mum. I was in tears, and I says, how on earth has this actually happened for me? Like,
Hmm.
girl from West Cumbria, gone down this sort of kind of route. And I just couldn't believe it. But the whole experience was absolutely amazing.
And I guess, your mentors who have put you forward, they must have been incredibly proud of you.
Absolutely.
Um,
And that's the biggest thing for me. So it's been having them people. So I've been really fortunate that I've had a couple of line managers who've been really supportive of my
mhm.
development and advocated for me.
Yep.
So, like when I've been working on the Women in Technology, sort of they could see how it was helping other people, but also helping myself. Um, and they would always be supportive. They'd always push back any negativity. And that's the key thing for me, just having them people in my life to support me in the career.
Yeah, having a good leader, it builds the person, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
And we've done, like I say before, we've done a number of schemes to try to get some confidence into women in our business, and some of them have gone on to great things. And it's great to see the pathways being broken, the stigma being broken down, but even more so being in West Cumbria, in a very male-dominated
Yeah.
company like Sellafield is seen from the outside.
Yeah.
So I guess before you went down the route of looking at STEM, looking at the future generations, did you actually approach senior management and say, I believe there's a gap, or was it kind of just a natural thing that happened?
It's quite interesting, really. So it was just before COVID hit. So we had a male manager who had a daughter, and he'd been sort of looking at gender balance, but he did have a female who is now my line manager in his team as an engineer at the time. And he had a conversation with her about becoming a line manager. She had all the traits that she needed to do an amazing job at the role. And she had the conversation that if she went head to head with a male for the job and they looked exactly the same on paper, she did believe that the male candidate would get the job over her. So he really started to explore this. He looked at the gender balance within the company, within the UK, and he got all the females together in the department. So there was only a handful of us, and there was 13% representation in control systems. So there was a department of 200, and he said, let's have a look at what we can do to make this change. And he really inspired, so he was an amazing male ally. He really inspired the females, and he kind of handed over the reins once we formed what was Women in Control Systems at the time.
Okay.
So there was no female team leaders.
Right.
It was all male. And over the next couple of years till where we are now, we've got 4 female team leaders, myself as a technical specialist. So we've really seen like the progress of what that group's done to our department.
Oh, that's amazing. I mean, it really is. I've been here for a long time, and I've worked with some incredibly powerful women. I've got 2 daughters, and I know how much they like to talk. But they also have that fear factor that there is a slight imbalance, and opportunities do go to the male colleague. I think that's being addressed. I really do. I'm quite positive about that step change, but we're a long way off. I mean, equality is something that always discussed. Do you feel you're getting your voice heard now?
Absolutely. And I mean, Sellafield in itself, they've got an amazing diversity and inclusion team, loads of support networks. And I will add that a lot of times for females, it is your own personal barriers that you bring to it. So when we look at applying for a job, a female will ensure that they meet 100% of the criteria in applying for a job, and a man won't. A man will be happy at 60% and they'll reach for the opportunity. So again, that's our own personal barrier in place. We may feel that we need to choose between a career or having a family. So that's something I really strongly advocate for. Like, I'll always talk about having my 4-year-old, my 6-year-old. I still work full time. My company's amazing and allows that flexibility, but it's trying to showcase you can have both worlds.
Yep. Yeah, and I think that's one of the difficult things. Trying to balance that work and home life. But you've started Women in Technology. And again, a few people from Institute have experienced Women in Defence, which was an amazing experience by all accounts. Has Women in Technology work? What, you're co-founded it, so what?
So it's been quite a journey. So we were originally Women in Control Systems, and our department changed and we became Women in Operational Technology. And then last year, as the co-lead, I realised we needed to expand outside of our own department at Sellafield to cover other departments working with technology, which is where we became Women in Technology. So we had people who were working with UAVs, remotely operated vehicles, the IT side of the company. But actually this year we've merged again. So we're now Sellafield's Women in Engineering, Science and Technology. And that's been a merge between the Women in Technology group and the Sellafield's Women Engineering Society. So we got to a position where our vision and mission of both of our groups were aligned. So we've just recently merged and we've just sort of gone public that this is our new group.
Okay.
And it's a really exciting journey ahead. I think we're going to have such a powerful impact as a group.
And what's the objective? What are you trying to achieve then with this combined power?
So we're trying to achieve gender equity.
Okay.
Our objectives, we're looking to support people currently in the careers, helping them develop to more senior leadership roles. Or it might be that they want to, from a lower level junior engineer to a senior engineer. Not everybody wants to be the next CEO of the company. We're looking at recruitment, so our ongoing work with the educational outreach, going into schools to showcase women in STEM-based roles. Obviously, the communication side of things, getting our group out there, not just in Sellafield, but national. And sort of supporting females, we see a large percentage as they get into the mid-career, moving away from working in engineering technology. So it's kind of how do we support females at that position in their career?
So if I was a young female engineer, how do I reach out? I mean, it's within your Sellafield community, you seem to have quite a nice community approach to it, but somebody outside of Sellafield, how do they get that support?
So there's lots of different groups within the supply chain. We'll do everything from the Sellafield Women Engineering Science and Technology group to support when we go into schools. I'm also one of the pathway leads for our degree apprentice programme. So as soon as they start their journey in the September, I've reached out to them all, made them aware that we've got this support network, invite them along to the meeting. So even at the beginning of their apprenticeship, that support is there for them.
Okay. Let's just say I'm a young, in fact, use one of my daughters.
Okay.
So they're at that stage. They're looking at sixth form. They're looking at which direction they should travel, and I think it's one of the hardest decisions in the world, and not many people get it right. And they're looking at what apprenticeships are out there. What are the key points you really are trying to get across to them? What should they be looking for?
They need to look something that's right for them. They need to be going and exploring the career events. I mean, Sellafield itself, we host apprenticeship events, go into schools. And when we do these, I also try and make sure we've got the balance of males and females. Have the conversation with people. The best way to know advice is to go through someone's journey. So I always ensure I take sort of the third, fourth year apprentice who's recently gone through the process and talk about how it felt for them.
Okay.
I think that's the best way to learn and know.
So you're almost creating mini leaders underneath you,
Absolutely.
empowering them to continue the message. I think that's really important because people can relate to somebody else's story, can't they?
Yeah, I can always remember when I started as an apprentice, and they sent one of the sort of late 60s managers to come and meet us all, and I just could not relate. I could not relate to him at all, and I kind of thought, what have I signed up to here? So now when, as the pathway lead, and I'm organising these career events and things like that, I ensure that there's younger apprentices that can relate to.
Approachable.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we're trying to, we're really making a big step change as a business, and I think industry has to. I think everyone recognises there's a huge gap. But I also think one of the things that are missing through COVID, and you talked about COVID earlier, that the water cooler conversations between a senior engineer and a junior, looking at a challenge whilst making a cup of coffee. How do you bridge that gap? Because you've got young engineers that you're bringing in, you encourage them to think differently, but you also need to tap into some of that experience. So are you getting some of the more experienced engineers to buy into the journey?
Yeah, so that is something that we've always done since we've been supporting apprentices. So when they come into the organisation, we do like rotations. They go around different teams to meet different engineers, and they'll then go into the final placement and they'll be assigned a mentor, and they'll also have a buddy. So the buddy will be someone who's recently out of the apprenticeship to help them through their journey, but they'll have a mentor to support them to how they'll proceed from being a junior engineer to senior engineer, looking at professional memberships, and also guiding them. So I had an amazing lady called Anne, and she was like my work mum to me, and she supported me through coming in as an apprentice to getting up to that senior engineer. And as a pathway lead, I ensure that our apprentices have got that in their own areas of the business.
Oh, it's so important. If you've got someone you can bounce off and trust, question your decisions as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So back to the actual engineering, because what you're doing is amazing, and I love the way you're getting the youngsters to think differently about opportunities in engineering. But as an engineer, you must have had some challenges in actually solving an engineering problem.
Yes.
Where did you tap into there then?
So actually as a young engineer, I worked in the thermal oxide reprocessing plant at Sellafield.
What on earth does that mean?
So it's basically where you're reprocessing nuclear material.
Right.
It no longer does that now. It's in the phase of decommissioning. But we had a very complex problem in the facility at the time with a deadline of reprocessing had to be complete. It completely pushed me out of my comfort zone. Having to work at that high level at sort of a young age, against people's beliefs that you got a young female engineer, is she capable of doing this? it was an amazing experience. I learned a lot from it. Managed to implement the changes to the system, stayed there overnight working with the operators to make sure that the software, hardware changes I'd made worked. And it was amazing to be able to sit there and see the final shear of nuclear material. It was one of my proudest engineering moments.
Right. I mean, that's uh, you can't go into too much detail.
No.
I get that, but just actually dealing with a challenge with a nuclear
Yeah,
reactor. That I bet you didn't think you'd be doing that when you was in the playground at 10 years old.
absolutely not.
Um, so you, I think one of the things that touched on talking to you is that you've created a culture that people can actually feel they can grow.
hmm
Um, but the imposter syndrome, let's talk about that because it affects men and women.
Yeah,
I think women are a little bit more open to understanding there's a barrier and they can break it down, whereas guys maybe just hide behind the fact and not say anything. But how did you break that imposter syndrome down?
for myself, I haven't.
You still haven't.
No, I
Okay.
still doubt myself all the time.
Love that. Me too.
Yeah, when I mean, for the IET Award, for example, like I would laugh and joke about it. Um, and my colleagues would be like, "You've done amazing." I'm like, I just don't know how I've got
hmm
there. Like, how can somebody see that? And it's maybe when you've had negative points in your life, because not everyone's always positive and
hmm
supportive. I think I home in on that. I'm very critical of myself. Um, and yeah, it takes a lot for me to have that self belief that I can do something. So yeah, it's definitely not gone away for me.
And I'm glad you said that because I believe, I've been working for a long time and I still have the imposter syndrome at times, but there's different ways of dealing with it.
Yeah,
Okay. So you clearly have found a way.
yeah.
What do you go to? How do you actually quieten the nerves, quieten the negative voice?
I
What do
think
you do?
I just try to be myself. I don't try to be something I'm not. I'm really genuine with everybody, no matter what the position is in a company. And I just challenge myself all the time. So I can always remember at school, I was asked to talk in church, read a little reading, and I was so anxious. I had to get my mum to go to school and say she really can't do this.
hmm
She's too nervous. And then in July, I was asked to do at the International Women Engineering Day to speak to about 250 people about my journey. And I couldn't sleep for a week before. My heart rate before I got up was 120. And I was absolutely terrified. And again, I was just myself. I was really authentic. I spoke about my journey and the amount of females that came up after me and they could just relate to me. Oh, you're a mum, you do this. And that's all I try to be, to try to overcome it. What's the worst that can happen?
Absolutely. I think that's taking that fear factor out of it, isn't it?
Yeah,
You're not the first person to sit there in front of a microphone and 100 or 200 people. And I think that fear factor is the negative voice telling you you're going to fail.
yeah,
The negative voice just doubting everything you're doing.
yeah,
Um, and it must be a challenge when you're in a room where you may be outnumbered by the male staff. You may be outnumbered in years of experience, but to be genuine, authentic, if you can do that, then you've got half a chance in every aspect of life. So how do you've got youngsters
yeah,
who obviously they think differently. They've got lots of tool sets. I know you've been 12 years, is it? You've been at Sellafield now?
yeah. About that.
Um, Things have changed a lot and the tool sets, and we're not going to go down how AI can work in an industry that's got obsolete kit. Not the only industry that's got
No.
obsolete kits, but that gives a different challenge. But what tool sets do you encourage the youngsters to use now to better themselves, to just to learn more?
And I think it is that case of adapting to the situation you're in to learn. So obviously, when they're working on these obsolete technologies, AI isn't going to give them the answer.
You can't.
They're going to have to go get a book and they're going to have to research and learn. However, they might go to a place where things work completely different. So they need to be adaptive. That's the key, especially working in the nuclear industry.
hmm
It's going to vary all the time. Resilience, they need to be resilient,
Yep.
confident. One thing I really push with our apprentices is that being brave enough to challenge. You work in the nuclear industry, you have to have your voice heard. Like, don't be afraid to challenge everything. That's psychological safety.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. I mean, I try to push dare to be different, think differently,
Yeah.
and you end up getting different results, don't you?
Yeah, we can get set in our ways as well. Of that's the way it's always been done. So I always challenge them. If you think there's a way to make it more efficient, work better, suggest it. It doesn't matter because you're new to the industry. It might be one of the best ideas we've had in a very long time.
Oh, yeah. And there certainly are some silly points put forward to me at times, but yeah, I think you've got to keep questioning, haven't you?
Yeah,
Um, and I think that a lot of the youngsters have different opportunities now because they've got a lot more knowledge coming to them.
yeah,
AI will help that, but AI is not going to replace that human
no.
answering, the human interpreting of the actual the challenge ahead. So you've talked about a couple of women that have really helped you along the way and been those mentors and pathway, but you know, who was your main inspiration?
So when I started my career, we did actually have one female team leader in the department, and she was my line manager. Um, and she was a complete inspiration to me.
Right.
So she wasn't to be messed with, but she had the kindest heart. So just for an example, we were in one building and we were moving to another. So 19 years old, young female, in engineering, and they had a seating plan. And at the time when we moved over, they sat me. So the manager of the department had sat me with the business admin team, and not with my own team. So my line manager had gone up and questioned why is Natalie not part of my team? Oh, we thought she was business admin. So my line manager made a point of getting everything off her desk and going and sitting over with that team so I could sit with my team of engineers. And for me, like, just that small statement meant everything to me.
Yeah. Well, I think that's any leaders out there need to understand that you can change people's lives,
Yeah.
and that may have just been a small move, but massive impact.
Absolutely.
And I think the legacy of that will be you're passing that down the chain again.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it makes me feel incredibly proud when I see some of the people who've worked for me over the years, or I've worked with in customers who elevate themselves, and all of a sudden they are shaping the next leaders. Future leaders are important. I think if we can invest in people, then great.
Yeah.
So what about books, podcasts? I mean, you must be a data dump of knowledge. What do you listen to?
In all honesty, I listen to parenting podcasts.
Not the astute engineer.
No.
You are going to be now, though.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
thank you.
I'm not a podcast person. I like reading fictional books, so I love my Kindle. Yeah, podcast isn't something I've necessarily massively
Okay.
listened to, but yes, it will be from now on. But I still believe that having the conversation with someone who's lived through that journey themselves. So, as you say, like students now, we were looking into careers. The most valuable thing is going into your areas and talking to someone who's living through that experience or has gone through the experience. I think it's invaluable.
Yeah, I think I mean, you mentioned earlier about the career events, and where we're based, there's a number of very large companies who do the career events and the graduate schemes and the apprenticeship schemes. And I think it's amazing. 20, 30 years ago, apprenticeship or graduate scheme was almost frowned upon as an apprenticeship. Everyone was being driven to go down to university. As you said before, you're going to get huge debt.
Yeah.
And some people still come out there not knowing what their true vocation of life is.
Yeah.
So, I love the introduction of these apprenticeship schemes, and my nephew's doing one at the moment, and he's living the life. So, I do encourage it, and I think your point about talking to people, don't be afraid to ask the questions, because people are coming to these career events to give them that guidance and support. But where you're looking at the STEM, is there an opportunity to go a little bit lower down? What sort of age are you starting to encourage people?
So I created a primary school workshop for year
Right.
5 and 6. That was age 10 to 11. So it was introducing the concepts of electrical circuits using hot wires kits.
Right.
And we used Botley the robot to introduce really basic steps of coding. But when the educational outreach team was set up, they've gone down into like year 1, year 2, really early years. So we used Blue Bots.
Right.
I'd done it in my daughter's school
wow.
a couple of weeks ago.
Right.
She absolutely loved it. Mummy was in school. And actually this week I was speaking to one of the mums on the playground, and she said to me, "Thank you so much for coming into school. My son absolutely loved the session. We went away and bought a little programming robot,
Right.
and he spent a week playing with it." And that for me is absolutely
Oh, yeah.
amazing. I've instilled that sort of excitement from year 2, age sort of 6. So yeah, we do start at that young age.
Oh, that is really amazing.
Yeah.
That really is, because if you can spark a bit of interest at that early age, then they really have a good chance, don't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really good. So, not a 6-year-old, but as a 16-year-old Natalie,
Yeah.
if you could sit alongside you now, what advice would you give?
Explore your options, be confident, and push yourself out your comfort zone. Don't doubt yourself. If I sat there at 16-year-old and said I'd be sitting doing an astute podcast, I would be like, absolutely nowhere on earth would that ever happen to me. So just believe in yourself. The world's your oyster. You can achieve anything you put your mind to.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Yeah, it's been a pleasure, and you're going to go far. I mean, there's no doubt about that. And I think, from what it sounds like, you're going to create lots of pathways and lots of opportunities. Cumbria, be aware, I guess. But I think it's brilliant what you're doing, and I encourage you to do as much as you can. And if we can help in any shape or form, we're going to try to build an engineering community online, and just to try to break those barriers down, I think is amazing. So,
Yeah.
thank you very much
Thank
for
you
your
very
time.
much. Thank you.
Well, I'm sure anyone who listens to this will hopefully pass this on to any young girl who's doubting where they should be. I think it's an amazing story. So thank you for your time. You know where to follow us on the usual socials. We will continue to try to break the barriers down. So yeah, enjoy. Thank you.